Good afternoon and welcome to our introduction to the Kilachand curriculum. My name is Carrie Preston. I'm the director of Kilachand Honors College, as well as a professor in the English Department and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies program. I offer you my hearty congratulations on your admission to Kilachand Honors College and to Boston University. I want to begin today's introduction, as we begin most events in our community, by offering the acknowledgement that Boston University operates on the ancestral homeland of the indigenous Massachusetts people. The anglicized version of their name was taken for the state we now know as Massachusetts. I acknowledge the painful history of colonialism and the need to meaningfully engage with indigenous communities still connected to this land, which Kilachand has begun to do with, for example, a co-curricular event a few weeks ago that brought Massachusetts leaders to Kilachand Hall to discuss how we can support their goals, including efforts to rename the residence hall at 610 Beacon Street. I pay my respects to the original people of this land and offer gratitude to the sustaining land itself. Founded in 2010 by a generous gift from BU trustee Rajan Kilachand, the Honors College offers a vibrant living learning community with the mission of offering a challenging liberal education grounded in critical and creative thinking and interdisciplinary problem solving. We seek to provide an integrated four-year curriculum in which our students address important global, social, corporate, and geopolitical challenges. We seek students who are intellectually curious and courageous, with a strong desire to connect the depth of learning that they do in their major with other fields of knowledge and then to problems in the real world. Our students earn a major in one of Boston University's 11 undergraduate schools and colleges while pursuing interdisciplinary liberal arts work in their honors classes. And I want to emphasize again, 11 schools and colleges, because only Boston University, of all the incredible institutions in this great city, has a college of engineering, a college of fine arts, a school of education, a school of business, law, medical, and dental schools, and a faculty of computing and data sciences, as well as all the liberal arts and sciences programs. At Kilachand, you have the opportunity to learn alongside students from each of these schools and colleges, pursue any major or degree, engage in mentored projects with faculty at the top of their fields, and receive a remarkable undergraduate liberal arts education in Kilachand Honors College. So we seek to offer some of the experiences you would associate with a small liberal arts college, but with all the many opportunities of a large private research institution like BU. BU has a relatively new university-wide general education program called the BU Hub. Your honors classes combined with courses in your major and sometimes minor will constitute your unique path through the BU Hub. We have dedicated honors advisors to help you navigate and shape that path, so don't get overwhelmed. Their offices, like the offices of the directors and our postdoctoral associates, are right in Kilachand Hall, where many of our students live. Okay, let's get into the Kilachand curriculum. And at any point that we're going through the curriculum, we'll have some faculty to talk with you about their experiences teaching. We'll have students to talk with you as well. Feel free to jot a question into the chat. We have some of our advising team ready to answer it, and we'll also answer some questions live at the end of the presentation. So here's our curriculum map. As you can see in the middle, in the second and third year, we build in flexibility so that students can study abroad or pursue internships or other valuable opportunities. In the first year, our students take a 2-credit writing studio that fulfills the university's writing requirements, as well as a first-year seminar and they get to select from a variety of opportunities. First on Studio, I'm very happy at this moment to introduce Dr. Danielle Dries, a Kilachand Postdoctoral Associate, to talk more about her experiences teaching our Studio courses.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. The Kilachand Writing Studio is a class across the whole first year that all first year students take. It's a sort of lab and active learning experience in reading and writing and research skills. Although this class is taught in small sections, maybe 12 to 15 students, every section shares some anchor texts each semester so that all students are engaging with the same themes across the college. So this year, for example, our theme was resilience and repair. And you can see one of our shared texts on the screen, the book No Refuge, about ethics and the global refugee crisis. We also all participate in co-curricular events, which I think you'll hear a little more about later. But for example, this year, all of our students went to see a performance in the Arnold Arboretum, a giant, beautiful garden in the middle of Boston. And then they all wrote reviews of that. So the sort of community of the college really becomes integrated with the practice in writing and research skills.
Thanks so much, Dr. Dries. I forgot to mention that these are really small classes as well, typically 8 to 12 students, both in Studio and in your first year seminar. You can see the flyer here for the visit of Shamel Bell. Shamel is one of the original organizers of Black Lives Matter, and she was our person in residence one semester. We do have a person in residence each semester, and this semester, just a few weeks ago, we had the renowned choreographer and director Bill T. Jones. That residency, like many of our other events, was connected with our first year seminar on the aesthetics of dance, taught by the director of the dance program, Professor Mickey Taylor Pinney. So those students and other students in our community had the opportunity to attend a lecture with Bill T. Jones and then a breakfast conversation the following morning. And we screened the documentary, Can You Bring It? Bill T. Jones and D-Man in the Waters, as part of another series of events, our Kilachand Favorite Film series. At this moment, I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Travis Franks, another of our postdoctoral associates, to talk about his first year seminar.
Yep. Hi, everyone, and thanks, Carrie. So for the last 2 years, I've taught a first year seminar that, as you can see, is titled The Representation and Misrepresentation of History and Art. This was actually a course that was on the books for some time and taught by a well-known art historian, Fred Kleiner. I was really fortunate to inherit it from him, and with Professor Preston's blessing, sort of revamped the focus of the course to address the developing controversies on Confederate monuments and memorials that developed in the wake of the police murder of George Floyd. I also fine-tuned the class to emphasize my experience as an Americanist. I'm actually trained in literary studies and cultural studies more broadly, so not an art historian, but through this class and our interdisciplinary focus in Kilachand was able to incorporate a really broad spectrum of art objects like the ones that you see on the slide here. And so in addition to the work that we did in the class, looking at famous paintings, sculptures, and photography, we were also able to look at things like native earthworks and less commonly accepted art objects from the Western historical perspective. But we also visited local sites, including the world famous MFA. And I was really fortunate to have been joined for the last 2 years by a local activist named Tori Bullock, who led the protest and successfully had the problematic Emancipation Memorial that you see on the slide here removed from downtown Boston. And based on his inspiration, have developed a renaming project here on campus that Professor Preston alluded to with 16 Beacon Street.
Thanks so much, Dr. Franks. And let's bring in a student perspective. Samaran Ramidi, a first year student double majoring across College of Arts and Sciences and Sargent in international relations and health science, also took Dr. Frank's seminar.
Thank you so much for Director Preston. So I did take Dr. Frank's class, AH 101, and for me, as someone that never thought about art history and never interacted with art history, my major has nothing to do with it. I always tell people that it's my favorite class I've ever taken here at BU. I've only had 2 semesters here, but that class was so much fun. And it was so informative because it touched on a topic I would have never thought I would have ever learned about. And especially coming from Ohio, I was like introduced to so many more perspectives and ideas that Dr. Franks talked about that was really interesting. So as Dr. Franks mentioned, we do cover a lot of different like monuments, sculptures, different art like representations. And every student would give a presentation about something that they worked on, about trying to understand it. So we get our own personal experience of like picking a monument and talking about it for the class. We had a group activity where we would think about a monument and then make our own representation of how we'd go around like trying to address the misrepresentation using what we learned in class. So coming from the perspective of never thinking about taking art history, this class was really informative. And one of my favorite things about like the Kilachand Honor Seminars of exposing new students to so many other fields and really getting an idea of like what a university is, to expose you to so many new ideas and so many new like fields of thought.
Thanks so much. So in the second or third year, students move on to a sequence that we call interdisciplinary perspectives on global challenges. In the fall, the course focuses on climate change, and in the spring, the course focuses on forced displacement. And the argument of the curriculum is that to understand these major challenges that we face as a society, you need all the disciplines to work together. So I'm teaching the course on forced displacement this semester with a team that includes Professor Zaman, pictured here. He's a well-known biomedical engineer, and we have teaching fellows from the law school. This is one opportunity where undergraduate students actually get to study with law faculty in Kilachand Honors College, as well as faculty who teach otherwise only graduate students in the School of Public Health and the medical school. We also have faculty from international relations, sociology, and anthropology on our team. And team teaching for me has just been incredible. So for example, I wrote this op-ed, co-wrote this op-ed with Professor Zaman about the need to teach courses on emerging humanitarian crises like the plight of Afghan refugees last August. And of course, in the middle of the semester, sadly, we had to revamp our curriculum. We thought that our emerging crisis might have been focused on Afghan refugees, but then the war in Ukraine displaced more than 10 million people so far, and we needed to incorporate that new crisis into our syllabus. So just to note that Kilachand courses are the kind that may need to scrap the syllabus and adjust as the world changes and throws challenges at us. We hope that they are that relevant and that we are flexible enough to adjust courses as needed. Kilachand students have the opportunity to engage in related experiential learning projects through the initiative on forced displacement that I co-founded with Professor Zaman. Students have participated in ongoing efforts to work alongside NGOs and others supporting refugees in Uganda, Colombia, and Lebanon. And just this last spring break, I was with students in the Rio Grande Valley supporting NGOs who are working with asylum seekers on the US southern border. We also have a specific Kilachand internship program designed to support work for students in as they pursue internships in social justice organizations and other opportunities. I'm going to bring in another student perspective here, and I'm happy to introduce Bridget Lang, who is a junior majoring in international relations and European studies, to talk a little bit about HC 302 on forced displacement.
Yeah, thank you so much. So yeah, I took HC 302 last year, so it was a little bit different. We were looking at different issues, but I am an international relations major. So coming into this course, I thought, oh, like I have already taken courses like on displacement. I'm going to know exactly what's going on, and that was totally not the case. I learned so much of this course because of the interdisciplinary like nature. So learning from so many different professors working in international relations, biomedical engineering, and liberal arts anthropology taught me so much that I didn't think about before, and different perspectives of how, to deal with solutions and find solutions to the refugee crisis. So through that experience, I kind of found that I was really interested in working on migration. And so I ended up applying to an internship this past winter to UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. And I was really excited because I was like going to be able to take what I learned from the course and apply it to the internship that I would be working on this summer. And so I got it. And one of the things that was really exciting was to see that Kilachand supported me in my internship search by receiving Professor Glory's mentorship and help with the application, and then also receiving a stipend from the Kilachand internship program. The internship I have is unpaid, so this made it possible for me to go travel to Geneva and kind of take what I learned from Kilachand and apply it to the real world setting. So it's very exciting to see all of those experiences come together.
Okay, on to the junior year. Kilachand students are preparing for their senior honors projects, first through a 2-credit proposal workshop that takes them through the stages of designing a fascinating year-long project, articulating a methodology and writing a budget. And I'll bring back Dr. Travis Franks, who has taught this workshop.
Thanks. So this is, I think, one of my favorite classes in KHC because I love, on one hand, how practical it is, but also the amount that I actually learn from my students in this class, which is true in all of our classes. But by this point, our students are really well into their academic careers and have a strong sense of their interests and what they'll be doing post KHC, whether that be grad school, law school, or going into the job sector. But this class is also in many ways an introduction to graduate studies in that it guides students through the entire process of developing what we call the Keystone project, which is essentially your undergraduate thesis or senior Keystone. So all the way from the beginning, developing a research question, conducting a literature review, most importantly, I think, identifying a faculty mentor and learning how to establish a positive working relationship, and then conceiving of a feasible project that you can carry out over your senior year. It's an opportunity, I think, in a really practical sense, if you are going to grad school, to develop what could potentially be part of your portfolio for your applications, or part of your, or like a writing sample for your applications. But it's also an opportunity to do work outside of your field. I think some of the most enjoyable projects that I've seen so far have actually been a combination of the two, where students combine their area of expertise in their academic studies with a personal passion. I've had students who were statistics majors who also played piano and have done mathematics of musical composition. I've got a student currently who is in international relations, who is developing a one-woman play based on this area of study in Latin America that she focuses on. So it's an opportunity to develop something really personal, but also something that can have long-lasting professional ramifications too.
So also in the junior year, typically our students take a course we call Epistemologies and the Process of Inquiry, which introduces students to major research methods across fields and helps them understand what constitutes knowledge, data, and creativity in various disciplines. At this point, I'm really happy to introduce Professor Joanna Davidson, who is an Associate Director of Kilachand Honors College and a professor in the Anthropology department, who has taught several versions of our 401 course.
Thank you, Professor Preston. So the 401 course, it's a kind of a mouthful, epistemologies in the process of inquiry. So let me unpack that a little bit. You've heard at this point, many of our panelists talk about the interdisciplinary aspects of many of our courses. It's what draws students and faculty alike to Kilachand, because we think across disciplines. But in order to do really good interdisciplinary thinking, we have to know what constitutes knowledge and method in various disciplines. So this course, 401, kind of sort of peels back the curtain on some of that. What we do is each course is focused around a topic, and some of these topics in the past have included water and communities, voting rights, digital lives, gun violence. We're developing a really exciting course for next year on wellness. And the course that I developed with faculty members, I'm an anthropologist, and I developed it with a faculty member from the Wheelock School of Education, who's a statistician, and someone from the Romance Studies Department, who's a scholar of French film. We developed a course on borders. And the idea is to take a topic, sometimes a kind of a hot button issue or sometimes a broader topic, and then to teach it in a modular fashion to get students to understand how would a humanist ask a question that is appropriate to this topic and develop the methodologies to explore that. How would a social scientist do that? How would a natural scientist or someone who's interested in quantitative aspects of this topic do that? And we do this kind of live in front of students. So a lot of the design of the course goes into the faculty members. And if you've picked up on this from what Professor Preston talked about with the 301 and 302 course, Kilachand is one of these rare places where you can actually take courses by teams of faculty. Usually universities don't offer team teaching courses. What I have loved about doing this is that I get to interact with colleagues from other schools and disciplines at the university who I normally wouldn't really get to have even a conversation with, let alone design a class with. And we get to kind of explore what we think are our kinds of appropriate questions, what even in our case on borders, what even counts as a good question about borders from a humanistic, a social scientific, and a natural science perspective. And then how do we get students to think about the questions that they might ask about these topics and develop the appropriate methodologies. Now, all of this is in service, of an interdisciplinary effort, but also in terms of what Dr. Franks just presented, in terms of how then students can translate this for their own passion projects in the Keystone process. So they might not be so absorbed or fascinated with the topics in 401, whether it's on borders or water or anything else, but they can take what they learn about how to frame a question, how to think about inquiry, how to bring to bear these different methodologies, take those lessons and apply them, translate them to the projects that they're developing in their Keystone work and even beyond. So that's what we do with 401. And I think I'm going to go right into the senior year now and talk about what we offer as the final set of courses from the Kilachand curriculum in a student's senior year. And this might seem a long way off to many of you listening to this. You're probably in your senior year, I think, of high school now. It's hard to imagine your senior year of college, but it comes quite quickly. And we're not willing to let you go yet. So we really want another chance to kind of think through with students some of the major issues that we've been developing across the curriculum, across these 4 years. And what we've designed as a sequence in the senior year is what we're calling people in process. And in the fall semester, students take, alongside their Keystone project that they're working on and final coursework in their majors, they take a 2-credit seminar called Lives and Works. And these are typically smallish seminars. We have sort of maybe somewhere between 12 and 16, sometimes 19 students in each class. And students choose from an array of options, each of which focuses on a major figure, a luminary, a famous person who has arguably made significant impact in their field or in the world. So you can see some examples on your screen right now. If we were doing this live, I would ask maybe somebody in the audience to identify who these people are on the screen. But since this is less interactive, we have examples of previous courses, Joan of Arc, Malcolm X, Maurice Sendak, who some of you might recognize as standing next to Where the Wild Things Are, a figure from there, Rachel Carson, and Zora Neale Hurston, who is the person that I focus on in my version of this course. And the idea here is to focus on an individual and their life and their works, but really put that into historical and cultural context, into a kind of a warts and all consideration of this person. Think about what it really takes to make significant impact in the world. Most people come to know these figures at the end point of their success story, at the ways in which they've already become icons in their field. And we kind of look back in terms of their biographies, but also in terms of the kinds of serendipitous ways that they achieved this impact, but always with this kind of philosophical backdrop of asking about what makes a good life. Right? How do we really evaluate success? And what are some of the costs involved in this? So the idea, of course, is to get to know these particular individuals and their impact and their own circumstances better, but also to think about the ways in which students can start to understand and make their own more informed decisions about how they want to craft their own meaningful lives and how they want to define their own versions of success and their own versions of the good life. And this inquiry continues into the spring semester. I'll pass it on to Dr. Dries to talk about the version of this in Choice and Change, in the 502 or 5X2 version of this.
Yes, that was a perfect setup. I was just going to say that as students move into their senior spring, their final semester in college, we keep this conversation about what makes a good life or a meaningful life going, and now really ask students to zoom in even further on their own lives. So while in the fall, students were thinking about a well-known figure, a luminary, in the spring, students are taking over more of the course design and choosing for themselves who in their own lives they would like to study. So we start off the semester by looking at different texts that sort of represent our relationships with other people. And you can see some of the books and films that I taught earlier this spring, thinking through family relationships, relationships in education, with caretakers, in activism. And then every student in the class chooses a person who has been important in their life to do research on, to interview, and ultimately to give a presentation on to the class. And these presentations are stunning. They're so fascinating to learn about who has been meaningful in students' own lives. I heard about a sports physician who is like saving the knees of NFL players. I heard about a grandma who was like a star cardiologist. It's been really all across the board. And it's a great way for students to share their own expertise and their own interests as they're getting ready to leave college. And then now in the semester, the last thing we do is work together to prepare for the Keystone Symposium, in which all seniors share their Keystone research with the college. So we are having those practice presentations this month, and really getting ready to be able to show everyone in the college what these students have learned over 4 years.
So the Keystone Project, you've been hearing about it. It's a substantial work of empirical or scholarly research, creativity, or invention that our students complete in their final year. These are some images of our students giving their final Keystone presentations, either as a poster presentation or a PowerPoint presentation. We are so excited that after 2 years of virtual symposiums, we'll be back in person together to celebrate this work with families, mentors, faculty, and friends all invited to enjoy these performances. Our seniors are probably maybe even a little more nervous than usual because they haven't gotten to see these presentations, and we're all getting used to being in person. again, but Emily Oros is here with us, taking time away from her presentations. She is a senior majoring in biomedical engineering with a biology minor, and will tell you a little bit about her Keystone journey.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so as mentioned earlier, Kilachand offers multiple options for completing the Keystone project, and I actually took a different path than the regular Keystone pathway that has been mentioned a little bit so far. In the College of Engineering, seniors already have to complete what's called their senior design project, which is a big year-long engineering project that gets presented at the end of the year. And Kilachand allows engineering seniors to use this project as their Keystone rather than working on two separate projects at once. Although, of course, if you have outside interest from engineering and want to do two projects, you can. I personally decided to use my senior design as my Keystone. And because of this, I didn't take HC 451 like some other students did, and instead was supported through my project journey by BME faculty, students, and my senior design courses. However, the KHC courses that I have taken this year, which are 501 and 502, kind of go through some general abstract writing practice and practice presentations. And that has been really helpful in teaching me how to better explain my project to an audience that may not have the same technical engineering background as the professors and students in my engineering courses that I've spent all year presenting to. For example, my project focuses on designing and testing a device that uses light to diagnose stages of kidney disease. And it is very, very technical. And my 502 class this semester has been really helpful in kind of correcting when I gloss over certain details and helping me better engage my audience. And it's also just been a really nice opportunity to listen to what some of the other Kilachand students have been doing and what they've been able to accomplish as well.
Thanks so much, Emily. So although this is mostly about this presentation is mostly about the Kilachand curriculum, we have to share some of the other exciting features of our program. You've been hearing about some of the co-curricular events that are incorporated into our curriculum quite often. And we organize 6, 7, 8 events each semester, and we ask students to attend 2. And they have some different goals. One is to introduce students to really eminent artists, intellectuals, business people, eminent people in their field, like Teju Cole, pictured here on this slide. And then also to get students out into the city of Boston. We take very seriously this idea that we are Boston University, we are the University of Boston, integrated into the city. So one year, one of the main studio texts was this exhibit at the Institute of Contemporary Art called When Home Won't Let You Stay, Migration Through Contemporary Art. So our students attended the exhibit, wrote a review about it, and also got to hear from the main curator of this exhibit. We work hard at Kilachand, but we also work really hard at having fun and enjoying our community. So we have regular teas about once a month, where we share food and informal conversation with students and Kilachand faculty and staff. Our student leaders also host regular study breaks over the weekend. We have a circle series, which is an empowerment space for Boston University students and community members, students who self-identify as persons of color, as first generation and low income students, and LGBTQIA+ students have an opportunity to join a circle. We have faculty who live in the dorms with us. Currently in our faculty in residence program, we have Assistant Professor of Music Kim Wu and former CIA officer John Woodward, who also teaches the first year seminar called The Spies of Boston. Our students have lots of opportunities to engage in leadership in Kilachand Honors College and also at the university more generally. One of those is our Kilachand Leadership Advisory Board that has the oh so satisfying acronym of KLAB, because I hope that by working with these students, it's really a laboratory trying to improve and support the Kilachand community. We have our Kilachand Ambassadors, who are our official representatives in our admissions events. If you have questions, you can reach out to one of these students, check out the website with their profiles, and feel free to reach out. Our ambassadors work so hard this time of year, and we're really grateful for their work and their support. And if you join us next year in the honors program, and we hope that you do, you will meet your first year mentor at our back to school celebratory barbecue. You can see students on the slide holding up their signs so that their mentees can find them. And I thought I would just bring back our students, Mara and Ramidi, our first year student, who might say a little bit about the peer mentoring program.
Yeah, the peer mentor program is absolutely amazing. To start off the year, you will start have a moment to speak with your peer mentor. Usually you're paired with someone that's similar to your major, similar to your interests. That way you have a connection. So I got the pleasure of having Sydney Steger as my peer mentor. She's also an international relations student. And from the beginning, we were able to get to vibe really well together. And I see her all the time now. We're in a lot of the same clubs, and she has been really helpful in trying to shape my opportunities, letting me know when there's stuff like that. Both of us are in the executive board for student government this year, both of us as chiefs of staff. So we've all it's almost been our little circle moment where we've all come back. But outside of the peer mentor program, you're going to naturally find a lot of mentors that you connect with because you're in Kilachand. So Bridget is actually one of those people. She is also an IR major just like me, and we are in a lot of the same clubs. And because of our Kilachand connection, we were able to hit it off really fast. And Bridget has been super helpful and pointing me in the right directions related to IR. We're both in the Boston University International Affairs Association, or BUIA, we like to call it. So no matter what, Kilachand is a really strong relationship that you'll build with, especially upperclassmen. And the biggest tip wherever you go, hopefully Kilachand, I will say that making friends with upperclassmen is going to be one of the best things you can do, because they're always there to support you and they know a lot more than anybody else could. So definitely make friends, reach out to upperclassmen, get to know people. It'll definitely be a super helpful way to get through college.
So these two pictures are both taken at the moment where first year students meet their peer mentors, and they're right in front of Kilachand Hall. You can see additional pictures here. And we hope to have the opportunity to welcome you at one of our in-person open houses in the next 2 Fridays coming up. Typically, our first year students all live here in Kilachand Hall, which is also where my office is, and the office of the advisors and the postdocs. But our 9th floor is being renovated over the course of this summer and next year. It's going to be incredible. There's going to be classroom spaces, collaborative spaces, a music practice room, event space, and the best view of BU and the Boston skyline and the Charles River on campus. So we're really excited, but we do know that it's going to be a bit disruptive next year. So our students will have the choice of living in Kilachand Hall for a reduced fee, or just about a half block down Bay State Road at the Residence Hall, 610 Beacon Street. And our upper class students also have the option to live in Kilachand House, which is a beautiful brownstone, also on Bay State Road with views of the river. Some students may be thinking this is a difficult choice, Kilachand Hall or 610 Beacon Street. And luckily, Bridget Lang can give you a little bit of advice because she has lived in both places.
Yeah, so my freshman year, I lived in Kilachand. I lived on the 2nd floor. And then my sophomore year, I moved down the street to 610 Beacon Street. And I also lived on the 2nd floor there. So very similar experiences. I loved using the stairs. Both of the buildings are very, very similar. They're both suite styled. So you'll be living with other people. So you'll have a room maybe with you're by yourself or with a roommate. And then there's other rooms attached. So it's really nice community to be able to have some of your own space, but then being able to see people out and about within your suite. And both residences have their own private bathrooms. So that's a huge plus, especially as a freshman coming in. It's very, very rare that you find that you get your own bathroom. So definitely something to look forward to. But both of the residences are very similar in the fact that they're both on our East Campus, which is super nice and accessible to areas like Newbury Street, where you might go shopping, or food in the Fenway area. And they both have the same living style. So you can't really go wrong with either one.
Thanks so much. And if you want another piece of advice or another tour of the dorm rooms, several of our students have pulled together to offer a virtual tour, which is available on our admitted website, which we'll post in the chat for you. So you can click there and go watch the virtual tour of 2 dorm rooms, one in Kilachand Hall and one at 610. So this concludes our presentation for this afternoon. We do have about 15 minutes for questions, so feel free to send some questions our way in the chat. We'll bring us all back out. Any questions? I see one question about being an engineering major that came in. And since Emily, you are an engineer, do you want to talk a little bit about combining Kilachand with engineering?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the Kilachand curriculum actually fits in really well with the engineering curriculum, especially like your sophomore and junior years, just because there is some flexibility with which classes you want to take, as well as with the engineering courses. They're not this fixed schedule that you need to take certain classes at a certain time. You have the ability to put classes wherever you want. So I think the engineering workload alone does make it a little bit more difficult than other schools to fit in extracurriculars. But I think the way that Kilachand is set up not only works well with the schedule, but also almost makes it easier to get some of those hub units that I feel like I personally would have had to go out of my way to get. But instead, my Kilachand courses kind of allowed me to finish my Kilachand curriculum as well as tackle 2 to 3 hub courses per class each semester. And I think it, in some ways, made my experience a little bit easier over these couple years.
That's great. Thanks. And Smaran had mentioned that Bridget was one of his mentors, but Bridget, you're also a peer mentor, right?
Yeah, so it's been a really rewarding program, getting to know the younger students coming in and giving them advice. I think it's, at least for me, when I was going through the program as a freshman, getting to know a peer mentor within my major was really, really helpful with courses and within Kilachand and also outside of Kilachand. So being able to do that for other people too has been super rewarding, and getting to know younger students and have more familiar faces.
Right. We'll be depending on some of those relationships as we are a little more dispersed just for next year between the different residences. But as I hope you can perceive, our students are super active and engaged with each other, and also communicative with us about what we can do to help support them and shape their experience. So we'll be getting feedback from our students next year as we navigate the construction project that will then produce our incredible 9th floor resource the following year.
There seems to be a question about doing a double major with Kilachand. So as Professor mentioned, Dr. Preston mentioned before, I am doing a dual degree program. So it's a little bit like a double major, except you're doing it across 2 classes. And I will say that it is like a process. You do have to meet with your advisors. You do have to plan it out, but it is very simple to do with a Kilachand curriculum. the Kilachand curriculum itself has been revamped to make sure that students can like do anything they want academically and make sure Kilachand really is supplemental in like shaping their experience, but not being a burden upon your academic journey. So there are a lot of instances where, for example, like your senior like Keystone project, you're allowed to do that as a part of your major and do a senior thesis in your major. And that opportunity for me allows me to do my dual degree program because I'm able to hopefully do a senior thesis within the International Relations department and also make that count for the Keystone. So there's a lot of ways that the Kilachand curriculum will overlap along with like your academic journey. But on top of that, it's not a very big of like a workload on top of you constantly. Your freshman year is like your biggest workload just because like you're getting into it. That's when you get to like have all those fun experiences of your seminar and your writing studio. Other students will also have that experience. So your freshman year, it may seem a little daunting, but I promise you, after that, it's gonna get a lot easier and you can do anything you want academically.
Can I just add something in there that was so helpful from your experience? But one of my favorite lines from our fabulous advisors is that, you know, you're coming, if you choose to come to BU, you're coming to a very large, very diverse research university, and Kilachand is a nest, is a kind of a college and an amazing sort of interdisciplinary incubator within that. And you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And I love that as a touchstone, as a reminder, because sometimes a lot of students come in and they want to double major and triple minor and do all of these other things. And those are fabulous passions and motivations to come in. And the advisors within Kilachand, as well as your faculty mentors, can really help you think about what is not only just sort of doing absolutely everything, but among the anythings that you can do, what is really going to be the most enriching experience that you can have? And often that's not about doing more and more and more. It's about thinking about how to integrate among the wide range of possibilities that you have. So I always find it really wonderful to see students come in and talk with our really experienced advisors to think about how to carve these every individual unique paths through the anything that BU offers, so that you're doing something that's actually meaningful and makes sense to you, rather than just trying to do it all.
Yeah, I would add to that. You know, I've taught at various levels in college, from community college to high school students that were doing a bridge program, to big state schools, to being in the honors college at BU. And I can say that the students I've taught here are easily the most well-prepared students I've ever worked with. But every group of students has always had their own particular challenges. And I think, I hope this isn't off base, but I think one of the things that students who come to KHC typically have experienced so much success already in their academic careers, and they thrive under pressure and have done really well under pressure. But one of the best things about being in a small liberal arts style living learning community within an R1 institution is that you have that support network around you that reminds you sometimes, like, class and grades are not the most important thing in your academic journey. Your well-being is the most important thing. And you need to take care of yourself, and you need people around you to support your well-being, and not just, you know, your success on a seminar paper or a project or whatever. It really is it's a holistic approach to an education here, and developing people who are critical thinkers and fully rounded, well-rounded people.
Absolutely. I would say that is not off base at all, especially in these last 2 years with the COVID pandemic. Students gave us great ideas about how we could support them, how we could navigate this very unusual experience together. And we worked so hard to create a community that was just based on care in all the ways that we could care for each other. And absolutely, teaching 451 hybrid the first time in the fall of 2020, that little group of students was my support system through tough times as well. And we are still in touch a year later as they're completing their senior Keystone projects that they were developing in my class. And that connection, that way that we just learned to support each other was so very important. We have a question about the renovation project and whether it will be disruptive for people staying in Kilachand Hall. And it's a good question. We're not entirely sure. The plan is that the most disruptive work will be done during the summer, and that the work next year will be on the 9th floor itself, the interior work. The 8th floor will not be occupied by residents, so that will be a kind of sound buffer for students. And we will be back in our offices in Kilachand Hall, although we're moving out this summer. We're scheduling classes in Kilachand Hall, so they're assuring us that it won't be too disruptive, but we are encouraging students to think about what will serve them best. They can live in Kilachand Hall for a reduced fee, but if students need absolute quiet or would be really disturbed by some construction noise or equipment outside the building, then we want to give them the option to do what is best for them and to choose a living situation in honors housing that will serve them and support them best. I see one last question here. Will this recording be available later? Yes, we are recording this session and we will make it available, and please feel free to share this as well as our upcoming opportunity to hear just from students, to get real insight into the student experience. That is Thursday, April 21st at 7 p.m. Also by Zoom webinar. And we do have 2 more in-person open houses at Kilachand Hall these next 2 Fridays. There are also a lot of other resources on that admitted student website that was put into the chat as well. So please check those out. As we sign off in our last 5 minutes, I would love to ask everyone present to either give one piece of advice to incoming students or share one thing that they really love or appreciate about Kilachand. I'll let you think and choose when you want to jump in.
I can start this off. I'll just say something that I really just have appreciated that KHC has offered me over these past 4 years. And that's just, this has been mentioned a lot already, but the community that KHC provides, I cannot imagine how my BU experience would have been if I didn't have the professors, the faculty and residents when I lived in Kilachand Hall, my roommates, and just everyone that I have met and studied with after living in Kilachand Hall with all those freshmen my first year, and then maintaining those relationships over the past 4 years. I still go back and visit my advisor, visit some of the security guards in the building, meet up with some of my friends who are underclassmen still in KHC, talk with my peer mentor who is already graduating and is in grad school. All these people have still remained a very influential part of my life, and I would not have had any other way of meeting them if it weren't for joining KHC and meeting everyone here.
I can go next. The one thing I really have enjoyed and noticed that this isn't consistent throughout like all different schools from talking to my friends and go to other colleges, the advising in Kilachand is so amazing. I remember the first day I was here for orientation and my advisor, who is Taryn Craig, I met her like earlier in the day, just talked to her for like 5-10 minutes about like my plans were for the 4 years. And she pointed out to me like later in the day, and she's like, that's Bridget, and like knew my name already. So you get to form lots of really special relationships with your peers and also with the professors that work in Kilachand and the advising and staff. So it's been really wonderful to get to see the community come together in so many different ways.
I can go next, like round out the ambassadors talking. Speaking a little bit more on what Emily said, I have this, like, one of my favorite memories is right before classes started, fall semester, when we all came in, we all moved in, a bunch of students like sent off in our like class group meeting like, hey, we're gonna go watch the fireworks. fireworks at Christopher Columbus Park in downtown. And then almost like half of the whole like freshman class made it over there through their own little routes. And we all were there like sitting down at the park and watching the fireworks. And this wasn't like an official Kilachand event at all, but it was all these freshman students who really just wanted to talk to people and get to know everybody, just all coming together by ourselves and creating that community. And we haven't even started classes. We didn't have our seminars or studios yet. We just all came together from the very beginning, and it's still like one of my favorite experiences here at BU.
All right. Go ahead, Danielle.
I can go. No one has yet mentioned the Kilachand offices, which are in the hall on the first floor of the dorm and are stocked with candy and granola bars and a coffee machine. We had lip balms available students could take. And they really become a place where I think especially the first year students sort of like gather and grab coffee together, maybe say hi to their advisor or to the postdocs and directors who all have offices in that space as well. And compared to other places I've taught, just feels like a much more social, interactive experience with the faculty and staff than I think most colleges offer.
So I'll chime in, and in a way, I want to kind of, I don't know, reverberate off of all these great comments, because starting with Emily, the idea of friendships forming and the strength of those. I'm a professor, and sure, Kilachand has helped me push my own kind of intellectual boundaries of what I can teach, what topics I can engage. That's been fabulous, but more than what that content is, what I have enjoyed most is seeing the exact kinds of things that all the students have been talking about, the friendships that have formed on that and how those last and how those are, yes, friendships, genuine social friendships, but actually how those are connected to the kind of intellectual climate that we build at Kilachand. And how I think what I take away from this community is that I'm an anthropologist, and we think a lot about how knowledge is built up relationally. And that means that the kinds of things that we learn are not tangential to the kinds of relationships that we form in the process of learning. And that's what I see live every day, inside and outside the classroom at Kilachand. It's those relationships that are, yes, wonderful social. You go see the fireworks, you go hang out, you do these things, but you're also engaged with like-minded people, with peers who are interested in building each other's knowledge and supporting each other's unique paths and contributing to that, again, inside and outside the classroom. So that's what keeps me invested in Kilachand and what I take away from kind of every day from my experience with interacting with students.
Yeah, I think mine is very similar. I love that there is such a balance between academic rigor and having that fully rounded college experience that's so much about community and kinship at all levels, really, with the staff and the faculty and the students. It really is a place, I think, that you can both be proud of having said that you went through KHC and that you're a graduate of BU, and you can look back on it really fondly and hopefully have friendships and have personal experiences that will stay with you the rest of your life. Honestly, there are amazing people here who will help you grow as a thinker, as a researcher, as a writer, but also as a person, as a community member, as a friend.
That was great. So heartwarming. Thank you to everyone on our panel and to Amanda Shelian in the background supporting the event. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, this evening. I congratulate you one more time on your admission to BU and to Kilachand Honors College. And I hope you continue your journey with us next year. But wherever that journey takes you, go with our best wishes. Thank you. Good night.